The morning the bank took everything from Nolan Pierce, the sky was painfully blue. By noon, the locks on his small garage had been changed. By sunset, the same people who had forced him out would be standing helplessly beside a stranded $2 million armored truck, praying that the men they had ignored all morning would save them. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that hard work should never be forgotten, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to Luxury Life Stories for more powerful true-to-life stories. Nolan Pierce was 38 years old, a widowed father raising his 10-year-old son, Mason, alone. Life had not been gentle to him. 3 years earlier, he had lost his wife, Ava, after a sudden illness. The hospital bills had drained their savings, and every day afterward felt like climbing a mountain carrying invisible weight. Still, Nolan never stopped fighting. His small roadside garage sat outside a quiet town where travelers often stopped for fuel and repairs. It wasn't fancy. The paint was peeling, the sign was faded, and the roof leaked during heavy rain. But it was honest work. Every bolt tightened, every engine repaired, every late night spent helping stranded drivers was done with pride. People trusted Nolan because he cared more about helping than making money. Then came the recession. Customers became fewer. Costs rose. Equipment broke down. Month after month, Nolan struggled to keep up with loan payments on the property. He skipped meals so Mason could have what he needed. He sold personal belongings. He worked 16-hour days. But eventually, the numbers won. On that bright summer morning, representatives from the bank arrived with documents, legal notices, and cold expressions. The garage that had been Nolan's entire life was officially repossessed. As Nolan packed a small toolbox into his aging pickup truck, Mason sat quietly beside him. The boy tried to be brave, but tears filled his eyes. Nolan smiled despite the pain crushing his chest. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder and promised they would find another way forward. Inside, however, he wasn't sure how. The garage door rolled shut for the final time. Hours later, Nolan and Mason were driving home along a rural highway when traffic suddenly slowed ahead. Several emergency vehicles blocked part of the road. Curious drivers gathered near a massive dark blue armored truck. The vehicle looked like something from a movie. Thick steel plating covered every surface. Specialized security systems protected millions of dollars in assets inside. But now it wasn't moving. A team of technicians surrounded it with frustrated faces. Nolan pulled over and watched from a distance. The armored truck belonged to a major security company transporting valuable assets between cities. According to the roadside chatter, an advanced locking system had malfunctioned after an electrical failure. The truck's rear security compartment had sealed itself completely. The problem was far worse than anyone expected. The onboard computers had crashed. The backup systems refused to respond. The electronic locks remained frozen. And inside the vehicle sat cargo worth more than $42 million. Specialists had already spent hours trying to access the compartment. Replacement parts were being flown in. Executives were arriving. Every minute of delay was costing enormous amounts of money. Then something caught Nolan's attention. He recognized the model. Years ago, before opening his garage, he had worked for a manufacturer that serviced specialized armored vehicles. He had spent countless nights studying complex security systems and mechanical fail-safes. As he examined the truck from afar, he noticed a tiny detail others seemed to miss. A damaged cable hidden beneath an access panel. His instincts immediately told him what had happened. At first, he turned away. After all, nobody had helped him that morning. Nobody had cared when his business disappeared. Why should he help now? But Mason looked up at him. The boy's eyes carried the same kindness his mother once had. Without saying a word, Nolan knew what he needed to do. He walked toward the stranded vehicle. Security personnel initially dismissed him. To them, he was simply a tired mechanic wearing worn work clothes. Yet after hours of failure, desperation began replacing pride. Eventually they allowed him a closer look. Executives watched skeptically. Technicians folded their arms. Nolan carefully examined the system for several minutes. The answer became clear almost immediately. The problem wasn't the sophisticated software. It wasn't the encrypted security network. It wasn't the expensive technology. A single damaged connection had interrupted communication between the primary lock system and the mechanical override. Millions of dollars in equipment had failed because of one overlooked component worth less than $20. Working carefully, Nolan improvised a temporary solution using basic tools from the same toolbox he had carried out of his repossessed garage earlier that day. The crowd waited. The sun hung low over the highway. Then came a loud metallic click. A second later, the massive security door unlocked. Silence spread through the entire scene. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The impossible problem had been solved in less than 20 minutes. Then cheers erupted. Executives rushed forward. Technicians stared in disbelief. Security teams finally breathed again. For the first time that day, Nolan smiled. But the greatest moment came afterward. When company officials learned who he was and what had happened that morning, they were stunned. A man who had just lost everything had chosen to help complete strangers instead of walking away. That choice changed his life. Within days, the security company offered Nolan a senior technical position overseeing specialized vehicle maintenance across multiple states. The salary was more than triple what he had earned from the garage. Months later, he purchased a new workshop. A larger one. A better one. A place where he trained young mechanics and gave opportunities to people struggling through hard times. Most importantly, Mason watched his father rebuild everything from the ground up. The lesson stayed with him forever. Sometimes life closes a door not to punish us, but to guide us toward one we never imagined existed. Before we reach the end, I have a special request. Comment, kindness always wins, if you believe helping others eventually comes back in unexpected ways. Years later, Nolan often drove past the old garage. The pain was gone. In its place stood gratitude. Losing that building had felt like the end of his story, but it was actually the beginning of a better chapter. And perhaps that's the most powerful truth of all. The people who rise again are not always the strongest. They are often the ones who choose kindness when bitterness would be easier. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to Luxury Life Stories. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind the world that hope, courage, and kindness still matter. Because sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the day that changes everything.